come to the American table via the spice route or from the Caribbean. But the main starches, the main proteins, they come out of the season, and I think that's to the good.
And you really believe that, I think you say this line, that gravy and cranberry sauce are maybe the two most essential parts, not the turkey.
Well, I mean, at a certain point, you're teasing apart the body. You know, can you have a body without a heart? And, you know, I do think they're extraordinarily important, both gravy and cranberry sauce. They help to tie the meal together, literally, in those sort of strings of gravy that are bringing the mashed potatoes onto the turkey meat and back. And in the case of the cranberry sauce, providing this like sweet, bright, acidic flavor that helps offset the like serious calorie intake of the rest of the meal. And I think absent them, there's no place to hide. You can't, if you overcook that turkey, as so many people do, the gravy will be literally a bomb to them. If it's a little salty because you've overbrined, as often people do, the cranberry sauce will help out. I think that without, you take away those two things and it's just Sunday supper at Great Aunt Matilda's. And I think that going the extra mile to make that delicious gravy is crucial, indeed mandatory.
I think one of the things that comes across in your book is that you seem to really enjoy making Thanksgiving dinner. It doesn't seem like it's a stress. I grew up with family members that there was language exchange. And because it was stressful, they hadn't planned it out. Do you really enjoy it? Or is there a stress factor for you? And how do you manage it once you hit that stress factor point?
Well, of course it's enormously stressful. A dozen or more people, 24 people are coming into your home. You're going to feed them food. They're not going to act the way you want them to act. and it's going to be problematic. And it's going to be problematic from the minute the first person arrives. And, you know, truth be told, the best Thanksgiving dinner you can ever imagine would be the one that you cooked entirely for yourself for 25 people, and then nobody showed up. It'd be awesome. Perfect. There's a perfect table, perfect food, and nobody to screw it up by showing up drunk, stinking smoke, or, you know, arguing or late because of the plane, because they're idiots and they took this plane and this. And, like, there are going to be problems. And all you can do to kind of deal with those problems is to kind of surf the wave of their arrival and provide a meal that you've planned for. And the way to do that is really to plan it out. Here I'll be doctrinaire again, but when I was doing that Times helpline on Thanksgiving Day, so people would send in emails or call freaking out about Thanksgiving, it was invariably because they had literally just thought about it the night before. Like, the turkey's still frozen, what can I do? Nothing. You can't do anything. You have a giant frozen turkey. You can have Thanksgiving tomorrow. You can't have Thanksgiving today. So it's worth it to really spend some time on that weekend before the Thanksgiving to think, like, really, who is really coming? And what are we really going to prepare? And if you know that, you know, drunky Uncle Christo is going to come, you got to, like, lay in the bourbon that you know that he wants. Or if you know that your cousin who doesn't drink anymore, you need the ashtrays and the local AA meeting list and all that stuff available in the den. And you just got to make like a restaurateur or hotelier for a minute and just think, like, how am I going to make people feel comfortable in my home, even if I hate them? Because we've always invited that person. Thanksgiving is filled with a lot of obligation to family or to weird. For a while, when we were running like absolutely orphan-dominated Thanksgiving, so there was one guy who showed up and it was like everything was new to him. The place set, he looked like he'd never seen a place set. This is unbelievable. So there are 2 forks? And you're just like, yeah, man, there are 2 forks. You're gonna need them. And then, yeah, that was, but I came to sort of love it after a while, the journey of discovery. For for this guy to realize that, yeah, the dishes don't wash themselves. Well, you're going to go in there and wash. Anyway, I think planning is of utmost importance because everything's going to go wrong and everything's going to be different than what you thought. And at least if you have the plan to kind of fall back on, things can be really fun.
Do you cook everything yourself?
No.
So you delegate?
Yeah, I delegate a fair amount. We've got a pretty good team going. In fact, there's a great recipe for stuffing, cornbread stuffing in this book that I developed out of one that a buddy of mine, Kurt Gardner, has cooked in our home for years and years and years. And it's central to what I understand Thanksgiving to be. And I realized a couple of years ago when we started on this process of putting this book together, I never cooked it. I've eaten tons of it, literally tons of this stuff. And because it makes way too much. But then to actually make it myself was just grand. And I love that there are people in our Thanksgiving, and maybe in your Thanksgivings as well, who contribute particular things to each holiday meal. The person who makes the mashed potatoes, whether correctly or incorrectly, the person who brings the pecan pie, the person who brings this or that.
Well, I was having a conversation with a colleague at the Post, just prior to our conversation. We talked about the wresting away of traditional dinners from previous generations and how that can be difficult. I've only done it a couple of times because my wife's family continues to do it. Has anyone tried to wrest it away from you yet?
Not yet. They're a little still. It inevitably will. There will come a time when they do, and maybe that'll be awesome, or it'll be a disaster, and I'll be the bad guy. I hope not. I think that it's really interesting to see how that process works in families and in groups of friends, how a tradition shifts from one generation to another. It's never without tension or difficulty, but my experience has been pretty great that so long as you recognize, if you can figure out what the most important thing to your mother or father or grandmother is when you steal her holiday from her and offer it to her in your own, you're probably in a better spot than someone who is like, we're done with turkey. We're going to do it this way. We're having sushi. That's not going to play.
I just want to start with some questions.
Oh, sure.
Sure. Okay. Questions?
We'll be taking cues. Yes, sir, in the back.
Oh, thank you. I have this crazy cousin that lives in Kentucky.
Don't we all?
And he has a lot of bad ideas, but I'm forever in his debt because he introduced me to the Sazerac cocktail when I was 13 years old, and he's a great guy. And he's been telling me for years to brine my turkey. I never did. I fought it off because I always said, it's going to be too salty. It's just going to set a salty turkey. He said, no, and he gave me this abstruse chemical engineer explanation of why it's not going to make it salty. There's certain things to it. So I did it last year. And it was incredible. Everybody flipped.
Yeah.
I woke up at 3 in the morning and I drank about a gallon of ice water because it was the saltiest thing I ever had. So my question is, was my brine turkey a guilty pleasure or a legitimate pleasure? And I'll take my answer off the air.
Well, brining is something that comes in and out of fashion. It's like hem length or something. It goes, and I've brined plenty of birds and cooked plenty without brine. Your brine had too much salt in it. It tasted great, and then it left you with that Red Lobster eyeball. Have you ever noticed that with Red Lobster? It's a shocking thing that happens to your body at 3 a.m. But if it was great, I would reduce the amount. You don't need more than half a cup of salt per gallon that you've got in there, and you want to match that with sugar, and it could work well. I think that a properly brined bird will not leave you doing that guppy thing at 3 a.m.
So you used your recipe in the book, basically.
Correct. It's available right over there. Anyone else? Yeah.
So I'm Drunky Uncle Christo.
Yeah, that's Drunk Uncle Christo.
Thank you very much for the wine. What's your philosophy on a kid's table? I know it's something that, sometimes we've had it, sometimes we haven't, and, it's kind of a different vibe. What do you think?
It's growing on me. As my kids start to dance toward adolescence. I think that there is, if it's a big enough, you don't want it to be a ghetto. A kid's ghetto is no good. But again, it's a little, you got to be careful with wine choice. I think that the most important quality in a Thanksgiving wine is volume, that there be a lot of it. I mean that kind of seriously. I don't think, it should not be something that's special. It should not be something that, you can't touch until the meal begins. It's not something you want to run out of. You want there to be plenty wine, and you want there to be plenty kinds of wine too, I think. I mean, we generally start with Prosecco, with oysters or whatever, and then have a kind of light red that moves into a sort of heavier one before Christo brings out the bourbons and ryes at the end, and that works out pretty well. I've done this, for a long time. I was a big proponent of big American reds, big Zins and Meritages, and they were terrific. Maybe even too big. So we dialed back and went in another direction for Barbarescos and things like that. But I guess the two pieces of advice that I would offer on Thanksgiving wine is that there be more of it than you think you need, and that it be colder than you ordinarily pour. Keep it on the porch or something, or put it in the fridge for 10 minutes before you serve it. There's something about that kind of slightly cold, slightly acid red that goes really well with Thanksgiving.
Think about the craft beer movement and its desire to be paired with food.
That's not going to go over with my mother. But I think it's great. I think that you could put together a really terrific pairing of craft beers and a Thanksgiving spread that would be really great. Yep. Yep.
I sort of think that the cooks enjoy Thanksgiving the most, and part of that is probably the food that you eat while you're cooking. For the appetizer question, I raise my hand because I eat the whole day, and I think of it as appetizers, but I don't actually serve anything to the guests.
Nice.
About what you most look forward to eating on Thanksgiving while you're cooking.
While I'm cooking, I really like tasting that gravy as I go along. I mean, I really do. Like, you take that roasted bird out, it's sitting, it's resting, you got this pan, this roasting pan, maybe it's a nice roasting pan, maybe it's just a tin one from the supermarket that costs $1, but there's a lot of funk and junk at the bottom of that, and a lot of turkey fat, and fond, and goo, and I put some butter in there, and that gets going, and then I'm scraping, and making a roux, and doing it, and then once there's a liquid in there, some really reduced turkey stock, or some hooch or something, and a little cream, and some salt and pepper, and now I'm ready to taste it. Now I'm ready to maybe rip off a piece of meat and kind of dredge it through there and see if it's any good. I might try a little cube of this cornbread right through there. And that, I have a lot of love for that moment of the Thanksgiving. You had a question?
Yes, I wonder if you could talk a little bit in segue about the grilled turkey. I did that many summers ago for my mom, and it just killed my biceps. I mean, she cut out the back,
Right.
and then I brined it, and then I just spent about 6 hours just
Turning
turning it,
and
and
turning.
turning it, and she loved it. And she asked me the next day, "Are you I said, absolutely not.
No.
And so then they asked, okay, how do you make a great gravy from a great grilled turkey?
Making a great gravy from a great grilled turkey is really a difficult business. It's super hard to do. It's essentially a fake-o. You gotta like have turkey stock that you made from a different bird, and then you're gonna make a roux and get a really, really dark roux, and kind of combine that to make a gravy as a restaurant would, and it'll be awesome. But you know, there's something about being in a store that makes me feel like a pitch man. Like I want to sell something. So if I can sell one thing, Weber sells this thing called a ranch kettle. It's like the regular round Weber, but it's gigantic. It's like the size of this table. And if you build a fire on one side of that ranch kettle, put the turkey on the other side, you're not out there working out your upper body that much. You move that around a little bit. It's an awesome thing. If you wanted to give me one, the ranch kettle, because it's expensive, I would really appreciate it.
Don't use an offset smoker. I've tried to do a turkey with an offset smoker. It's very difficult.
Oh, that would be hard to
Yeah.
get the temperature.
Well, turkey doesn't take smoke very well either.
It takes it extraordinarily well, is another way of putting it.
Right.
It tastes like a marble. Yeah.
I was looking through the book quickly before you started, and your recipe for pumpkin pie calls for canned puree.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, do you think it's just one of those recipes that's not worth starting from scratch?
Well, that was the question that I had when I started to test the recipes that went into the book. And I did the thing where you buy the candy, the beautiful candy guy, and I roasted them, I peeled them out, and I did all that stuff. I mean, and it took a long, long, long time. And I ended up with something that tasted basically indistinguishable from the Libby's canned stuff. And then I started thinking about the recipe on that can, and how it ties us all, it's not like Libby's, and I'm sure it belongs to Conagra or whatever, but I choose to think of it as a small little brand or whatever that just has all these little elves putting together their cans of pumpkin for the year, and I started to feel nostalgic and American, and I thought it was okay, there's one recipe in the book. Obviously, someone's going to point out at a reading sometime. It's made with canned pumpkin. But I'm telling you, go ahead, you do the work. It takes like 1 million pumpkins, 1 million little pumpkins to make one pie. And then these nice little Keebler elves over at Libby's do it for you, and it works great. And it tastes like childhood. Yep.
First off, thanks for your caramel asada recipe.
Oh, sure.
About 4 blocks away, you've made your line about overnight marinating with this stuff. This has turned 3 friends into chefs. And you're like, this guy says I don't have to do it. So thank you for that. That's
You bet.
easier. Can you talk about leftovers? If I have turkey tetrazzini one more Thanksgiving, I'm going to kill. So I saw there's a chapter with.
Yeah, there's no turkey tetrazzini in there. This turkey tetrazzini is a problem. I mean, it's not bad. I suppose you can do it, but I think that one of the things that I really encourage people to do with a big Thanksgiving is to send people home with leftovers. That's one thing that will avoid the 5th night of turkey tetrazzini, is making sure that when people leave, they're leaving with some meat, and some stuffing, and some stuff that they can either reheat and have another Thanksgiving meal and say, God, that Sam guy's great, or that they can make into sandwiches or whatever the heck they want to do with it. So one option for kind of clearing the slate at the end of the meal is to send people home with a lot of leftovers. Another is to make a lot of sandwiches. You got a long weekend coming up, plenty of football to watch. You should be making a lot of sandwiches. Because what you want to get down to is that carcass that you can make into a really rich super stock, and then you can do something truly exciting, like make a risotto with it, or a big gumbo, or something like that. But the first job is to kind of clear out the initial rush, and the best way to do that is saying, hey man, take home some.
Let's have one more question.
Okay.
Last question.
I have a question.
You have a question?
Yes, sure. What's your next phase going to be? Obviously, it's a successful book from all the people that are here. I appreciate what you're doing. Are you going to move into more of a universal, like a Martha Stewart kind of phase where you start to do your own show, etc.?
That's going to work really well for me. I'm going to be a branded individual. Actually, I think one of the things that I've become fascinated with in writing about Thanksgiving and in talking about Thanksgiving is the notion of family and friends gathering around a table. And I have a notion to kind of explore the idea of a book about Sunday suppers or whatever day you have them, family and friends meals, because I think it's a part of American culture that has slipped a little in our modern age. I don't want to sound like a documentary. Oh, wow.
Yeah, you can.
Tough now.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's something cool about it, what happens when we gather in the presence of food and wine and just talk and eat. And so I want to write about that.
So I guess, but I'm just saying as a follow-up, have you thought about being on camera? Have you thought about what, the potential of doing something broadcast-wise could be, et cetera?
I got a face for radio. I'm gonna stick that out, I think. And I got plenty to do at the time. Yes, ma'am.
No. I was just going to tell everyone that we're going to be having a book signing. So everyone who's purchased your books already, we're going to be doing the signing right over here. Sarah.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen, and thank you for being here.
All right, this is our chef Dion tonight. We put together a great combination. I like to know what that is. That's stuffing.
Stuffing, sausage, of course, normal seasonal herbs, celery, onions. The actual cornmeal is sweetened, so the sweet with the pepper, with the heat, perfect. This is turkey sandwiches. It has cornbread in it. That's a secret. Cornbread, cranberries, brown mustard, mayo. Typical, but dark meat, which makes it more succulent.
It's a different kind of taste, though, right?
Yeah, as opposed to white meat. White meat is a bit drier after brine it. So dark meat definitely.
And that's one of the things that Sam talked about. The celebrity chef tonight talked about brining, but you have a preference for this case to use dark meat.
Well, the white meat, which is a breast, you have to brine. For it to be succulent, you have to brine it. Dark meat, you still brine it if you want to with turkey, but because of the fat and the cartilage, succulent. It always comes down very soft.
I got to taste this. I didn't get a chance to taste it when it came out before.
Grab one.
Okay, thank you so much. Oh, I want to make sure. I'm going to exchange cards with you, okay?
Sure.
Sure. So I want to make sure you get this video, okay?
Okay, let's break another one. Let's break another one.
Chef, this is for you. You have a card with you?
Not on me. I would actually.
How do I get in contact with you?
I would give you.
Yeah, can you write it down on something?
Sorry.
Can you write it down on something? Can I get another one of those turkey sandwiches, please?
I don't have my gloves on, so.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
This stuff is awesome. Awesome, man, really. Thank you. Okay, so do me a favor, just write it down on a piece of paper.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's fine. That'll work. What is this stuff? What is that?
That.
Was that rum samples?
Yeah.
They put that out earlier?
Real fast.
Are they supposed to be just like this?
No.
What's in there?
It gets. I could hook you up with one.
Okay, I appreciate that. Don't forget that, okay? Because I want you to know who I am when I write to you.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. Chef Dion.
And it gets normally served with cream. In this case,
Break that down. Break the bar down, please. Please. Thanks. Alright, so just go downstairs. I know.